Oh, we haven't played anything from Tusk yet.
With Rumours selling so well, was it a lot of pressure put on the group?
The new album was called Tusk.
More edgy, more dirty.
But you don't want to die, neither do I.
Clearly, it was not what they were expecting.
Lindsay experiments with his styles in a way that nobody else ever has ever done.
If you don't let me do it my way, I quit.
Most of Fleetwood Mac's songs are broken-hearted melodies.
But this frail creature is certainly not going to go down to Fleetwood Mac or anybody else.
Cost over $1 million to produce. Expensive retail price, 2 discs.
People can feel things not only through lyrics, but just through the atmosphere of the track.
Everything is done for us. Everything.
People are strong, people are weak, and that's the joy of having someone to bounce off.
Find me the biggest brass sound that you can.
Maybe the public needed something like us at the time.
I'm just sick of 90% of the stuff I hear on the radio, and I think everyone else is too.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Two Tusks podcast. I'm Bryce. Hello, Jeff.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Yes.
It is side D. We are here on the fourth side of
final side.
Tusk. It's our final side.
Yeah.
How do you feel after this 2-month project?
I was actually thinking the other day about how I really want to take Tusk and make the Jeff version of Tusk that only is like 10 songs.
Yeah.
And mostly just the ones that I really like. Because there've been some real bangers on here that I've enjoyed.
Yeah.
But I will say that side D is not it probably only has one song.
I feel you on both counts.
Yeah.
Like I've been thinking over the past few weeks, what if you rearranged this into its 3 pieces among the 3 songwriters?
Oh, okay.
As 3 solo albums, like 3 LPs or something. But I also think that they would each be too lopsided.
Yeah.
I think there's something about all of them being really different and weird. That's good. And also, yeah, this is definitely the miscellaneous side of this album. But it also has some of my favorite musical moments.
Well, there you go.
So there we go. You want to jump into our first track here?
Honey High.
Jump right in. Honey High.
Honey High. Honey High.
Honey High. Let's listen to a little preview of Honey High, huh?
Sure.
How could you forget Honey High? I couldn't. Honey High.
Honey High.
The first track off of side D.
Mm-hmm.
How do we feel about Honey High? It's kind of slight.
I listened to this one and there was something that was like pulling at my brain saying, what is it about this song? And I finally realized what it was today, the last time that I listened to it. You talked before about the Beach Boys influence. This sounds like a Beach Boys song, like between the bongos and the
little wood blocks.
Yeah, it's got a very like kind of yacht rock tropical kind of vibe to it.
Yeah. In that way, it sits alongside "Never Make Me Cry."
Right.
Kind of the watery, beachy imagery of it. Sure. In Get Tusked, the memoir about recording this by Ken Calais and Hernan Rojas, they described this as Christine had described it at the time as the Island Love Groove song. And when I found that quote earlier today, I had to write it down because at no point did I think it was an island groove song.
That lines up perfectly with my impression. And this was a Christine joint. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that it was so sweet and saccharine. I was like, I'm pretty sure this is Christine.
Yeah. Though I do think you can piece out the other voices as backup voices here. I think you can hear Stevie a good bit and a little bit of Lindsay in the backing vocals. This is kind of a strange song. I didn't get the islandy thing until I saw that. I legitimately didn't. I think I paint a lot of this album as country, and I think in my head this is a country song.
You know, it possibly could be, but I think that it was like the third time that I listened to it that the bongos. Yeah. I think that's what really like leans it more into that like Kokomo kind of.
Yeah. And you know, I think I was stuck on there's a little ding sound right after that
triangle
chorus hits. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I thought like, oh, it's kind of triangle-y. It's kind of giving farm triangle. But I have like a really hot and cold relationship with this song. I think it's super catchy.
Yeah.
I think this is another song where by the time you get to the end of it, where it's doing this 3 or 4 part canon, basically, you're kind of locked in. Like, honey, hi, daddy, I'm here to tell. Oh, I'm far away from. Like, it. That vocal interplay is so good. You just need all of this warm up to get into it. Between a really strangely structured song.
Yeah,
there's a lot of like 6 measure phrases almost. You know, a lot of beats like, why do you have this line here when you could just go right into the second chorus? Like a lot of little things like that.
It's kind of awkward. I mean, that's the thing that differentiates to me between this and a Beach Boys song is that Beach Boys songs are usually very smooth, right? They're very easy to listen to, whereas this one is a little bit disjointed. Like
you're caught flat-footed.
Yeah.
When those structures are not in 4 measures, and in 6 measures. I don't know. I think in other pop songs, when they're like when there's a 6 measure phrase, it's usually like it sounds good.
Yeah,
that's you don't. It's rather you don't get this like like starting and stopping almost.
Yeah,
of like, wait, are we? Nope. Okay, and now we're going into it.
There's I mean, this, and I think this whole side like has a lot of this to it. I think it's somewhat endemic of how a lot of this album has some really interesting ideas that I almost want to see yet another pass over.
Yeah.
Because like this one, like a lot of the songs on this album, I also feel like it doesn't have enough of a change, like where a lot of these songs end up kind of just oozing together into one big verse, right? Even if they do have chorus type of stuff, that there's not much of a musical change or anything to signal that we're moving to a different part of the song. It's kind of this one droning tale. And
that's a lot on, especially on this side for sure.
Yeah.
But
also this one might have the longest fade in of
It's
I don't know,
so
Tusk
long.
might have a longer fade.
It's so long and it sounds really bad.
Yes.
I think it sounds so they don't need it because the instruments don't start at the same time fucking either.
Yep. When I got in my car and I was driving over here and I turned on, I usually listen to the side right before we record.
Yeah.
And my phone was connected to my Bluetooth and I was like, did I not hit play? Did I not start? And then I heard it like really faintly.
I felt the same thing when we were playing it here. I was like, I hit play, right? I don't want to like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
Also, can we talk a little bit about Daddy? About
Daddy, all I'm trying to tell you. This is the third. If you look at the Fleetwood Mac's discography, so we're here on Tusk.
Yeah.
But Christine McVie has 2 other Daddy songs up to this point. On Fleetwood Mac, she has Sugar Daddy.
Okay.
Which is, if he wants to pour me whiskey, he can pour it neat, but he can't love me.
Yeah.
And then Rumors, which had Oh Daddy.
Okay.
Which was kind of about Mick Fleetwood going through his own divorce. And so we also get Daddy here in Honey High.
Yeah. I think it's
a part of this that like really has aged poorly or really weirdly for me, because I'm not into daddy imagery at all. I'm not for it.
Well, yeah, I was thinking about, like, I was actually thinking a lot about this when I listened to this side, because I was just kind of trying to find something to hang on to. But a lot of it was the idea that, like, this is from a different time, and there probably has been an evolution of the way that word is treated in popular culture that now makes it like stand out like a big bright light to me when I hear it in a song, and I'm like, oh, well, hello, Daddy.
Hello, Daddy. Yeah. That's why go listen to Oh Daddy from Rumors. Oh Daddy, you know you make me cry.
Oh, goodness. Daddy, no. Oh,
Daddy,
boy.
Another fun story from the Get Tusked book about this.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, they recorded a fencing match in the studio.
Okay.
Ting, 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 ting. For Honey High.
Percussion?
Yeah. They recorded a fencing match that was in time with the song.
Okay.
I don't know what that means.
They invented Beat Saber so early.
They were the first stomp.
First Beat Saber. They were.
A quote from Ernan: "It was a lot of fun and it sounded great, but eventually we had to erase it when we ran out of tracks while recording the background vocals."
What a weird reason to remove something so interesting and experimental. Just like,
it sounded good, but the suits made us get rid of it.
Do we have another tape anywhere in here? Do we have any more?
Now, granted, at the time, that's a real excuse.
Sure.
Mixing consoles, I think that they were using in that studio was probably 24 tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think they had like a 16 track second guy. They had a little fella over in the corner.
Okay.
That's the quickest way for me to describe it.
I'm trying to imagine what that would sound like, because this song is so chill, and having this kind of like tick tick tick, it might have been the spice that I needed to
maybe
jazz it up a little bit.
Well, let's listen to the alternate version of Honey High.
Okay.
This one is going to be different.
Okay.
Here we go. the alternate Honey High. It sounds more like a demo. Just guitar, keyboard, and Christine's vocal track. Probably a scratch vocal from the actual recording of it.
Okay.
And so you don't get the canon part at the end with
Right.
the multiple voices,
Yep.
no background vocals. Something about this version of this song makes Honey High catchier to me. Something about just the Honey Honey High at the end is all I need. Like that's such enough of a hook that it kind of outperforms that portion of the studio version. To me.
Well, I did notice that Daddy isn't with us anymore.
There's no Daddy.
No, I agree that the thing is that I think that the lyrics seem like they've been simplified in a way that does just kind of cut to the heart of the sweet little song that we've got here. I think that though it loses a lot by simplifying the music, right? By only having the couple of instruments.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, maybe add the fencing back in or
it definitely goes from feeling like a band's song to Christine's song.
Yes.
In so many words. I think it's interesting also in those last Honey Honey Highs at the end is you hear without the backing vocals and without, the sheen of getting a perfect take, you hear her voice cracking as she's trying to hit those high notes. And kind of similar to what we talked about in the earlier Lindsay song, and I Know I'm Not Wrong, I think, where you just where that cracking as kind of the voice shifts along the windpipe, it cracks. It feels like that's here too. Almost the intentionality of it, but instead of leaving it so raw, and invisible, I guess. And I Know I'm Not Wrong, it gets kind of smoothed out by having a nicer take, multiple background tracks.
Well, it's kind of strange because this version seems more like something. The arrangement seems like it was made for a more impactful song. Like, not to insult Christine, I like pop songs or stuff, but this seems like the sort of thing where if you took this and you put in a bass line and a normal drums, not even the bongos, this would be the sort of song I wanted to hear really smoothed out, really produced, really, because then it would be very catchy earworm. I don't need to really be zoned in on the lyrics when most of them are just the words honey high. Like, I don't need to hear every intonation of your voice as you soulfully channel the honey high
because unlike Never Make Me Cry, which is a vocal showcase,
right,
this is not.
And
even maybe those two songs are similar in like the depth of their lyrics, but at the same time, Never Make Me Cry is much more readable. You can read into it more than Lord, I really love you, honey, honey, honey. Like
it's almost like it's like a reminiscent. The lyrical content is reminiscent of like a 60s song, or like a doo-wop song, or like early Beatles, of just like very simple
love you, baby.
Just candy with one flavor.
A funny bit in Get Tusked. So Get Tusked is written by Ken and Ernan, and when Ken is talking about Honey High, they don't talk about Honey High very much in the book, other than like the whole band put it together. They used a lot of little instruments, and they had a fun time jamming it out. But so Ernan kind of talks about that process, and in Ken's short section talking about it, instead of talking anything about like the recording of the song, he mentions that Christine gets dropped off by Dennis Wilson, who she's dating at the time.
Sure.
The beach boy who he likes to party, he's drinking and drugging.
Yep.
And he drops her off in his new Shelby Cobra, a sports car. And Ken kind of sees her get out, and Dennis ends up giving him a ride. Offers like, hey, do you want to take a ride in my fucking Shelby Cobra? And he does.
Yeah.
And he realizes that the jug of orange juice that Dennis is drinking in the car is not just orange juice. And that Dennis really likes this car.
Yeah.
And the streets of Los Angeles do not.
Okay.
So just a fun little side journey there in Honey High. I honestly don't have anything else to say about this because it does feel like a pretty big departure from where the studio version ended up.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I see a straight line between these two things.
It's also, and because of the time between us recording these, I kind of wipe my memory of some of the previous stuff and dig back in. But the one thing I think that this side, and this just goes for everything, is that the previous sides have had at least a few places where we've had some really raw emotional content, and this being more of kind of just an easygoing, you're great song is very much a departure from that. I could see it being, I don't know, I could see somebody turning that disc over and being like, wait, what? Where am I now?
When is it going to start? When is it starting?
That's right.
Yeah. Well, why don't we take a real hard dog leg left and move on to the second song, why don't we?
Okay.
Let's listen to a little bit of Beautiful Child before we talk about it.
All right.
Beautiful child, beautiful child, you are a beautiful child, and I am a fool once more. Choice, I have to stay. Ooh, I had to stay. Ooh, I had to stay. Sleepless child. That you were mine. I wish that you were mine.
Beautiful Child. It's maybe my favorite song on the album.
Yeah.
Beautiful Child. It's great to sing to. I mean, that's going to be my number one with a bullet. It's amazing to sing to. If this is in your vocal range and you have a car with a sound speaker system, you should try singing Beautiful Child because you will go 95 miles per hour in your car.
Oh, this makes you go really fast.
It makes you go very fast.
Okay.
I'm not a child! How do you feel about Beautiful Child?
I'm very confused by this song. Like, I think that when I first listened to it...
Oh, yes, I forgot. No, continue.
Yeah, when I first listened to it, I thought it was like, it's a Stevie Nicks like showcase, right? We're hearing her kind of do another one of these big kind of tone poem songs. The musically speaking, there's not a lot here. It's mostly just kind of backing her up. And then I started kind of catching these snippets of the lyrics, and I think that I may not have the proper framework because there's a lot in here. There's a part at the beginning about how you fell in love with me when I was 10. And like, there's a read of this song that I don't know if this is like a person talking about getting into a relationship with somebody with a big age difference or something. I don't know. I know that there's a lot of the lyrics I really like. I really like the your eyes say yes, but you don't say
yes.
Yeah, because you that common phrase is like your eyes say yes, but your ankles say no way, buddy. But having that kind of inversion of that.
Yeah.
But I don't really know. I listened to this song like 4 or 5 times, reading the lyrics, trying to be like, what is this about? Because the vibes that I was getting, it was like this could be a song about falling in love young. There's nothing that says there's an age difference in the song, but
sure.
I don't know. I was hoping that you might have some insight for me on
I do. So this is one where, because of the sensitivity of the lyrics, the band did not really ask Stevie to explain it at the time. Though, as described in Get Tusk, it did come out later what the song was about. So the song was about Stevie's relationship with Derek Taylor. He was the press officer for the Beatles, the Beach Boys, the Byrds, and some other folks, and he was indeed much older than her.
Okay.
And so I think that's probably where most of that comes from, is that he was just significantly older. You could maybe add a reading of maybe she's addressing Lindsay, because they were like, I want to say like high school sweethearts. They knew they were together for a long time.
Yeah.
Since they were children, though maybe not 10 years old.
Right. Because the read, I don't really know, but the read that I get when I hear this is that it's almost like a song about somebody who is younger that is dating somebody older, but who wants to do that. And that, like, then as the song goes on, we kind of get into this I can love you from afar stuff where it's almost like, well, this was something that happened and everybody was on board with it, but it was so tumultuous that it ended up kind of falling apart, and that the singer has made their peace with that sort of thing. And I don't know if that's right, but like that's kind of, that was just what I got after listening to it a bunch of times. So.
Yeah. I think the other thing that I picked up is that I think if you were to think of a time and place for the lyrics, I believe that they're meant to represent maybe their last day together. And I think you see that in some of the lyrics, right? You say it'll be harder in the morning. I wait for you to say just go.
Right.
Like, those are very much like the morning after sort of messages.
I think it's interesting because I do think that there's like 4 lines in here that if you changed them would make this an entirely different, like the very specific age call out at the beginning, I think does some strange, like it kind of, it points the song in a different direction.
Yeah.
That I think a lot of the CB songs are a little bit more poetic and nebulous and stuff, but I think that kind of like having that lyric in there, I don't know. It could just be like we were talking about the time difference of different social mores and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That it could just be that it comes off differently to me here in 2025 than it did when it came out.
Absolutely. And I think we talked about this a little bit, where the writing of Stevie's songs is intentionally there's an
ethereal, airy, or
she writes about a lot of things.
Right.
She writes about a lot of things, and I think there's even a word where you can read "beautiful child" similarly to Sarah, of like, okay, maybe this is also about like a lost child, but I'm putting some silence there. Apparently, when UNESCO and UNICEF in 1979, they called it the Year of the Child, or the Year of the International Year of the Child, or something.
Interesting. Okay.
And apparently, Stevie donated the royalties of this song to that foundation, to that campaign. And so I don't think you're far afield to say that it also might actually just be about a child, about losing a child or a child disappearing from your life.
It's also,
many things.
I've thought about this too, where like this whole album, a lot of the songs, like we talked about this when with going from What Makes You Think You're the One to Storms, where like the previous song will prime you in a way. And I think that there's a good possibility. I actually thought about just rearranging my little track list and trying to listen to the song without listening to Honey High first, because that's such a romantic song. And then it comes right into this that really starts out with that lyric that it was hard for me to see this as anything but a song about a romance. And it's very possible that that's just happening because my brain is trying to make these sides into a narrative or a story.
Yeah.
Or the thing before has me thinking about that.
And I think we talked about it briefly, but that tonal whiplash was intentional. That at least on a high level, the idea of creating contrast between these wildly different sounding songs, wildly different messaging of songs, that was intentional.
Yeah.
But I think the intentionality was as the opposite, right? I think it was intentional to make a bit of chaos and mess, not necessarily to say this is the best version of our story.
Right.
That is from here to here to here to here to here.
Yeah.
It's just everyone thinks we're going to go here, so we're going to zag on them.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. The contrast.
Yeah. Before, I guess let's get into the alternate Beautiful Child.
Okay.
But I will say a few things before it. Similar to some of the other alternates that we've had, this one was also previously released. And so I'm just putting an asterisk here on what the like providence of this take might be. Only because I think there's a world where they took. I think what we're going to listen to is a slightly earlier take or a slightly earlier mix of this.
Okay.
And I don't know how much from the initial time it was re-released to this current re-release for the Alternate Tusk, if it was what that process looked like, right?
Oh, okay. What happened between the two?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, granted, I don't know enough about the Alternate Tusk to say this was the philosophy of this recording either.
Right.
Or to say that would be different than what they did with Beautiful Child. Anyway, this version makes me mad.
Okay.
This version makes me really mad.
Makes you drive even faster.
I drive 105 miles per hour. Here is the alternate Beautiful Child.
You are a beautiful child, and I am a fool once more. You fell in love when I was only 10. The years disappear, much has gone by since then. I bite my lip. Can you send me away? You touch, I have no choice. I have to stay. Ooh, I had to stay. Ooh, I had to stay. Sleepless child, there's so little time. Your eyes say yes, but you don't Well, I wish that you were mine. I wish that you were mine. You say it will be harder in the morning. I wait for you to say, just go. Your hands held mine so few hours, but I'm not a child anymore. I'm not a child anymore. I'm tall enough to reach for the stars. I'm old enough to love you from afar. Too trusting, yes, but then women usually are. I'm not a child, I'm tall enough to reach for the stars. I will do as I'm told, enough to love you from afar, even if I never hold you again. Hold you again. Sleepless child. There's so little time. Your eyes say yes, but you don't say yes. I wish that you were mine. I wish that you were mine. Well, I wish that you were mine. Well, I wish that you were mine. I wish that you were mine.
It's like an experience. I'm chewing out over here.
I thought this was the one that made you mad.
It does make me mad.
Yeah.
I've not approached the alternate versions in a sense of you took this from me.
Uh-huh.
At no point during the other 19 songs do I listen to the alternate Tusk and go like, oh, we were robbed of this.
Mhm.
You robbed us of the good version of Sarah. Like I generally want to be like, this is what they ended up with. These were the decisions. But this alternate version of Beautiful Child with the electric guitars, with just the really soft kick drum, no snare at all.
Yeah.
It's not as shined up as the studio version is, but the emotion and the drama in this version are just like a completely different galaxy compared to the original take. It's just, even the vocals, like that is, I'm pretty sure that's almost the entire like vocal take from the studio version.
Yeah.
Like the background vocals are different. Some of the vocals that she does in here are a little different, but generally that's the take that they use.
Yeah.
And I think it's one where addition by subtraction did not work. Compared to pretty much any of the other examples on this album. And that's what makes me mad, is the sense that, like, damn, you almost hit a perfect game on some level, but you made me see your missteps.
I was very confused because when you told me that this version made you mad, I thought it was because it was so terrible. So I was listening to it and I was like, I kind of like the way the guitar kind of comes in. Like
it's good. Like that. There's very little electric guitar in the studio version, and it's pulling its weight and then some in this version.
Yep.
You know, it's not as poppy. It's not as poppy. I'll give it. It's not as poppy of an arrangement as the studio version, but God, like,
I think I don't know. I think it's one guitar track away from being like an 80s ballad, like the
some power chords.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, no, like the like Every Rose Has Its Thorn, or like that electric guitar really makes it sound a lot more like an 80s song than something from before. No, I do think I like that version better. The only thing is I didn't, because we didn't get that far down the lyrics, I'd forgotten that there's this one lyric in this that there's one line in this thing that drives me up the damn wall.
Is it too trusting? Yes, but then women usually are?
Yes. There are like 3 more words in that line than there need to be, and it makes it really awkward where it has to all be kind of
women usually are.
Like,
yeah.
You know, why is there a yes? Too trusting, but women usually are. Like, that's a lot shorter, but then women usually are. And then that too trusting, yes, but then women, I'm like, no, just trim it down, because, and it wouldn't stick out in my mind except for the fact that, like, in a song where I have a hard time hearing lyrics a lot of times, and I can make out just about every lyric to this song, but that is like a run-on sentence in the middle of a very pointed.
Yes, but it is. It does almost have like a musical vibe cadence, of like too trusting. Yes, then like you could a little expository.
Like every line kind of is its own thing. So I understand why you wouldn't want to break it into 2 lines. It should be broken into 2 lines, or they should cut out 2 or 3 of those words and just squeeze it together a little bit. Because out of all the lyrics here, you know, every line is like very much its own thing. It's all out. It's all stark. You can hear it. You can get it. You know what the idea is. But that one line just, like, I don't know. It bugs me.
Yeah.
Grammatically and lyrically and musically.
If anything, I think I do feel a little bit of a twinge with that line, because it does feel, again, I think it's comparative sensibilities.
Yeah.
Like, I would probably not want to say women are too trusting in the lyrics of a song.
Well, then there's that part of it too. Yes.
But some of the other stuff here on the alternate is, by not having that snare, going back and listening to the studio version makes you realize how forward that snare is. And I think it also creates more space for the bass by having less electric guitar. It's another kind of song where the bass is doing a lot of work.
Yeah.
For what is another song where it kind of doesn't change it feels like it doesn't, like the lyrics change. Like there's enough structural change between, okay, this is a verse and a chorus. We've got a verse and like a chorus A and a chorus B. Like, okay, there's a lot changing, but at the same time, musically, we're kind of keep bouncing around what feels like some of this, just the same couple of chords over and over again. Which we'll fucking get into next with Walk Us in Line too. And I also thought it was interesting that this has basically the final vocal take, because it's good. In fact, I think a part of what makes me think that this is an early take of the final cut is that the piano, right in the beginning, there's that bit where the piano is like a little late on a note. And it does that in this one too. And
I think it might be another one of these things where the piano track kind of got baked into the whole.
Or did that mistake get baked in? There are other songs on Tusk where there are bits that seem like a mistake, are completely in It's Not That Funny, right? We talked about the symbol, the muting at the end of Not That Funny, and that sounds different in those two takes, which to me signals that that's intentional. That's written into the song.
Right.
Play a crash and then mute the middle of it for a brief period. And maybe that's just what it is here. It's like kind of lag on that seventh note. Maybe just like actually make it seem like, Yeah. It's not perfect. It's imperfect. Okay. Any other thoughts here on Beautiful Child, the alternate?
There's something that I've felt a lot of times, and I feel it a lot on this alternate take, which is that I sometimes wish that there was a version that had kind of even more instrumentation, where we kind of there's an idea in here about using some of the stripped down instrumentation to really like punctuate some of the lyrics. And I think that sometimes with Stevie's songs, they can become a little monotonous because they're long, and you got to really like Stevie Nicks for a lot of these songs. And so I do appreciate that electric guitar, and I kind of wish that we would see more of that, of like the rest of the band getting to kind of help out, to kind of buoy up, express some emotions in the background while these things are happening. I think I made a similar what was the one about the water imagery?
Never Make Me Cry.
Well, thinking about having more, a less stripped down version that had a little bit more production. But then again, I think that's just my personal taste, wish casting kind of stuff. So,
but I mean,
and it's possible
that's the reaction. That's probably some amount of reaction that people had listening to the original was like, why is this so weird? Couldn't you have just made a regular rock song?
Right.
All right, well, let's jump into another track here. Why don't we go to Walk a Thin Line, huh? It's another Lindsey Buckingham song. Here we go.
I seen so many things that made me wonder, but sometimes it's hard to tell. I said, say they knew me well. I said, stay by my side, but no one said nothing. I walked a thin
All right, that's Walk a Thin Line. How do you feel about Walk a Thin Line?
Oh, poor Lindsey. He's out there all alone. He's got to walk that line. Nobody's listening. No one wants to listen to his wisdom.
It's not. He's not subtle. I like Lindsey, but his songwriting is a little flat.
Yeah,
I agree.
I like this song. I do. It's very. It's like I like it. But I mean, I like it, but there's nothing too notable about it. There's nothing that really stands out.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem very experimental. It just seems like a very kind of basic song. The lyrics are basic. The instrumentation is very, I don't know, just regular. Like I liked it, and I kept coming back to it, trying to figure out if the only reason I liked it was because I just didn't have anything bad to say about it. Like there's a difference between being inoffensive and actually being like, excited about a thing.
It feels kind of like the opposite of Save Me a Place from side A, where Save Me a Place is also kind of slow and tender, and accompanied with this big vocal dubbing of multiple voices in the chorus, kind of giving this big, this big pop. Where here on Walk a Thin Line, similarly, it goes from one voices to many in a really interesting, cool interplay, especially on that, like, I walk a thin line, line. And because it sounds softer, it's not, for as like kind of obtuse as this song is, Save Me a Place is even more obtuse. And I think in that case, like the sentimentality to me plays a little stronger on Save Me a Place versus Walk a Thin Line, even though they both are impressive, slower Lindsay songs with impressive tracked vocals.
I will say that this one, I don't want to repeat myself too much, but this is another one where it's just like, there's this kind of verse cadence and it's repeated 5 times and then the song is over. There's not like a appealing guitar solo. There's not even I think it would have been nice to have seen like a key change to emphasize like one of these verses, or just, it's such a basic song that it's like, boy, put some gravy on this thing, like put some pepper on there.
They talk about that in the book too, of like, it's just kind of 2 chords back and forth, and we try, we zhuzhed it up and we did all the vocal harmony interplays. Who is this? Ken talks about this initially. It had started a little bit as a faster demo, probably a little over 120 BPM.
So it's 70 seconds long.
So they slowed it down to about 69 BPM.
Sure.
Ken described it as a dreamy, trance-like stoner ballad. Which
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, and I think we talked last time about the Beach Boys and their Smile album. I believe Smile is a big influence here on this.
I could see it.
One of the stories about, I believe it's this track, is the drumming on it. This is a drumming story. This is a fun one. You want to let's listen back in just for another brief second here of the drums of Walk a Thin Line. Did you catch it?
I don't know that I did.
It's a bit, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of a Sarah situation. So Lindsay held a lot of control over his songs, would go and do a lot of recordings at his home. Okay. Some of the final tracks on Tusk are just straight recordings from Lindsay's home. This song, Mick Fleetwood was very annoyed at the drumming that Lindsay did on the song.
Oh.
Because he was really obsessed with this kind of military style march drum pattern that he learned.
I mean, when I took drum lessons, like we started with, like, this would be the sort of thing that you would practice to, like in year 1, because it's so just like, and it's very basic. It's the sort of thing that I think anybody that's starting out on Trap Kit could be able to do.
But that fill that is in this whole thing, I think Lindsay was really into that fill and liked his drumming, and Mick didn't like it. And so this is not actually covered in Get Tusked, but it is part of the story of this. So I don't know if this comes from Mick's biography from the 80s, which I skimmed through, but I didn't actually look into for this podcast. But Mick did not like how much Lindsay's drum playing was like out of time, and said like, hey, if we put this out, it's going to make me look bad.
Yeah.
People are going to think I did the drumming.
Right.
So the drums on this studio track are actually doubled. One is Lindsay.
Oh.
One is Mick.
Okay.
Playing the fixed drums.
Okay.
It works.
There's double. Okay,
Listen again. We'll go back and listen to that same thing.
Let's just see here.
Left and right.
Okay.
Tracked left and right.
Yeah, no,
just like the Sarah pianos. Actually,
I think that the reason it didn't stand out is because when you do that kind of double up, what it just sounds like is it sounds a little echoey, right? When you have two tracks that are similar right on top of each other, it can just make it sound like it was recorded in a larger room, and so I wasn't getting that at first, but
you listen closely and they're not the same. They're not the same recording.
Well, I don't know.
Interesting.
I mean, I have maintained through this entire project that I think that I don't know what Mick Fleetwood and John McVie did to be relegated to these studio musicians for a lot of this album. Like, I was so happy in Tusk to hear Mick Fleetwood just get to go crazy on the drums. Like, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Lindsay, come on. If you wanted, sounds like people wanted to walk that thin line with you, Lindsay, and that you didn't want them to.
Well, before we get into the alternate for Walk a Thin Line, just briefly. So I guess they tracked a version of Walk a Thin Line, and then over a period of months, Lindsay would go in and overdub more and more into it. Okay. He'd go and add a line, add something, or replace a track. So there's some talk of like the version that we listened to, the studio version, doesn't have any hi-hats. It's again another kind of kick and snare as far as the drumming goes. There's some instances where like acoustic guitar has been put in to kind of replace the hi-hat. And so what we'll get here is a little truer to an early version of this slower, the still, pre-slow down or post-slow down Walk a Thin Line.
Okay.
All right, here we go. The alternate, Walk a Thin Line.
I've seen so many things and made me wonder, but sometimes it's hard to tell. I said, take your time. When no one was listening, I walked a thin line. You told me that I never would recover, but some say they knew me well. I said, stay by my side. No one said nothing. I walked a thin line. said fade takes time, but no one was listening. I walk a thin line.
The alternate walk a thin line.
Wow.
Very different.
Yeah.
There, I talked a bit just before about that a lot of this got overdubbed, and a lot of what's on here is what got overdubbed. Things like the toy piano in the second half,
Okay.
the hi-hat, the rhythm guitar, a lot of pieces from this to the studio album kind of ship of Theseus got changed.
Right.
And then, of course, all those backing vocals and interplay is not here.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this alternate version?
I love it when we were able to get to this point on this podcast where I think I like the vocal track from the studio album better. I don't like it being, it's a little bit more ethereal here.
Yeah.
I think I like it being a little bit more grounded. But musically, I love this. This is what I'm looking for more toy
Really?
piano. I did want to ask, do we know if these are Lindsay drums? Are these Mick drums?
That's a good question. I would
Because there's a lot of interesting stuff going on with the drums. I mean, most of the hi-hat is in the right channel. There's a lot of times where the hi-hat is being dropped, like for a beat. There's points where it's being opened and then closed. There's points where we're going to like a ride cymbal or something like that for like 2 beats and then back. It sounds like we got brushes in play that are doing some of the, I mean, I don't know if that's the case or not, but there's just there was a lot more complexity.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've been yearning for, is like, if you're going to do something experimental, wow, this sounds like a ride on a UFO. Like, give me the experiment.
And so with this one, I don't exactly know, because this drum track doesn't totally seem to follow the track on the studio album. But this is also a way less compressed track. I could totally see a world where if you, especially in a recording studio where you've got all of the different microphones, miking a drum kit, where you just took the drum and kick and then you kind of went with the timing on those, and maybe those were the sloppiness that we see in the studio album. But again, like you said, there's a lot of technique in here that may have been Mick. So I don't know the answer to that.
Well,
but that it does. There are some things in there that do sound interesting, like the hi-hat. One thing they talk about is that they would process the vocal different tracks, and I think what they did with the hi-hat is it's just that hi-hat, but you hear it have that kind of not phasing, but sort of this in and out effect. It sounds like the hi-hat is being fed through like a Leslie speaker. If your listeners are not aware, a Leslie speaker often used with an organ, like a Hammond organ. It's a little speaker box that has a speaker in it, but that speaker cone is on like a Lazy Susan. It's on a rotating platform.
Okay.
And it spins. You turn it on and and it has to spin up. And when it gets to speed, it's all of the sound is coming out of that speaker, but because it's changing direction and the microphone that's recording it is not, you get this in and out. It's not phasing, it's not Doppler effect, but you hear it kind of going like it's being swung around like on a rope almost. Like that's what that hi-hat sound is in this. Where it's like.
See, now what I thought was it sounded like, so it's interesting because there's a lot of different ways that you could take this, right? To me, what it sounded like is somebody hitting the hi-hat and then letting it open a little bit, like, because when you have it clamped shut, it's a very tight sound, but as you can just like release it a little bit and get a little bit more of that, like, a little bit more of the like part of it, as opposed to being a real quick snap and having it open and then close, which is why I was asking, like, there's a lot of this stuff that in my mind sounds like a jazz drummer doing interesting improvisational, not necessarily fills, but more like, like I said, dropping things, switching for 2 beats to something else and then coming back.
Yeah.
But that could also be what you were talking about, James Lindsay adding like track after track after track, like continuing to layer on individually recorded drum tracks that have been very specifically created to make that same style of effect. So it's hard to say whether this is like a man versus machine type of thing.
That's interesting. To kind of go back to what you were talking about earlier, that you preferred the instrumentation of this alternate version more than the studio one. I think I disagree. There's something about the toy piano that I'm glad is not in the final studio mix. Like, I don't think I have anything against toy piano. But I think by this part of the album, even though it's not everywhere on here, I hear it and I go like, oh, okay.
I don't know. After the kind of simplistic like tracks on Honey High and Beautiful Child, and then given how interesting Tusk is, I think that it would have made for an interesting kind of transition up. We're moving between the kind of static or the kind of just basic arrangements in something a little bit more experimental, and then okay, here's something that's very different. So
hey everyone, just a quick intermission and we'll get back to the music. Thanks for listening to Two Tusks. This mini-series was made possible by all of the support over at patreon.com/LFGX. They got all of Two Tusks before anyone else with full song previews and enhanced audio quality. If you're interested in what's next, visit patreon.com/LFGX. My name is Bryce Castillo. Check out the marbles racing streams I do at the website marbles.win, or follow me on Twitch at Brycas, BRYCAS, to join in on the fun every Thursday night. My co-host is Jeff S. Thank you to him for joining me, and please show him some love over on Rage Select on YouTube, where he's been covering new video game releases for over a decade. That's Rage Select on YouTube, or go to rageselect.com. You're listening to Two Tusks, hosted by Bryce C. and Jeff S., produced by Bryce Castillo. Fleetwood Mac's music, including Tusk Deluxe, The Dance, and Fleetwood Mac Live in Boston, are available everywhere from Warner Records. Now, back to the Tusks. All right, let's jump into song number 4 on side D, the titular Tusk.
Finally,
we're here.
Finally.
It feels so weird talking about the song Tusk 19 songs into Tusk.
The title track.
Yeah.
Like one song from the end of the entire album.
I know. Let's listen to the preview of Tusk, because there's a lot to talk about Tusk.
Sure. Tusk.
Totally different than most everything else on the album.
Absolutely.
The very experimental song, Tusk. There's so many places to start, but I'd like to start on your impressions because I have to imagine that if you listen to 18 of the songs on Tusk and then Tusk starts playing, you might go, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, it should come as no surprise that of these songs, I don't know, this is definitely in like the top songs that I've heard on this album. It's definitely my favorite of this side.
Okay.
It's what I've kind of wanted this entire time, of something that's really out there. It sounds completely different than everything else. More than anything, I just come to the end of the song and I'm like, I want more of this. Like, I wish that there's been a longer song, that it had a little bit more to it.
Because after the drum solo, there's nothing.
Yep.
There's just shouting Tusk and kind of jamming and some little vocal vamps and different like percussion additions. Like there's enough production wise going on that from that point to the end of the song, like it's kind of changing and keeping things alive. But yeah, it's not like there's a chorus to this fucking thing.
Right.
There's that like what?
Yeah. It sounds like it's from a completely different band. Like, it really does.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any of the simple Christine or Lindsay kind of stuff, and it's not lyrical like Stevie's song. Like, it's a very much a music forward track in a way that a lot of this has been lyrical focused.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I like so much about it. I love the drum solo. I love the marching band. You know, I love the fact that even before the marching band starts to come in, there's just like a kind of a crowd noise behind the entire track that just makes it feel, I don't know, more like
you're
dirty and alive.
You're filing into the arena and the gladiators are about to take their place.
Right. It gives it an entirely different tone, and I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Tusk has a lot of interesting stories.
Okay.
We'll start from where Tusk starts, which was on stage. Tusk actually started off as a stage riff. So the touring element of Fleetwood Mac was it's kind of described as a paramilitary operation. You get in, we get to the place, we perform the songs, and we go. You know, Fleetwood Mac has been a band for a long time. Touring is something that they've done for a long time. And so that's part of it. And to hear the story that occasionally, in the few times where the band couldn't get a proper sound check in, they would play a stage riff as the audience was starting to come in or before the show would start. That way they could get levels, and the stage riff that they would do was Tusk.
Okay.
Or was kind of a drum, a kind of a
sure.
And then a little bit of guitar strumming. And so like in the original demo that they cut, it really only just had the "why don't you ask him if he's going to stay or if he's going away" line.
Right.
There wasn't even really the like big Tusk moment. It was just kind of that, and then kind of that Lindsay thing of just kind of like, and just fill in the words for something later. We'll put the words in later.
I mean, it does seem like a song, especially if you take the marching band aspect out of it, that could just go as long as you want it to, right?
Yeah.
Like, it could just kind of keep repeating over and over again.
If you listen to the on the re-release for Rumors, they one of the discs is live tracks, and the intro to that, you can hear the stage riff of dun, 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 just a little bit. It doesn't sound like Tusk, but you hear that riff in this little like rock jingle that they're doing.
Interesting.
So that's kind of a funny little bit of Providence there.
Can I ask you a question about the song?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if you have any background information.
Maybe.
I like just screaming Tusk, but it also doesn't really have any context, and it's also the name of the album, and I'm curious if there's some kind of story about what Tusk? Like, were we at the Natural History Museum and you had an idea for a Fleetwood Mac album, or you go to the aquarium? Like, was there a?
So, so they're tracking the song and they're messing with the stage riff. It's still just kind of called stage riff at this point. And Lindsay realizes that every time he says Tusk, it gets a giggle out of the people who are listening.
Okay.
Because back then, Tusk, the word, Tusk, the song, Tusk, the meaning behind the song is penis.
Okay.
It's very penile.
Okay. Good job, Lindsay. I would expect no less.
And so, Tusk!
I'm trying to think of a version of this song where it's just like down, cock, like just
Yeah.
yeah.
And so that with Tusk becoming the title track, it was slightly contentious choosing Tusk to be the title track, to be the image for the visual for it.
Yeah.
Apparently, before Tusk was decided on, the band had told Stevie, "You are going to be on that cover." We shot a photo of you like twirling a baton or something.
Yeah,
it's going to be you. And then, as they're making Tusk, either the band or the record label hires someone to like take photos, and there are multiple people working on photography projects around this album, but one of them is to like take these photos for some sort of like African inspired like collage of images.
Okay.
Which leads to the photo of Scooter the dog biting at Ken Caillet's leg, his owner. And that ended up being the Tusk. You can see his teeth baring as he bites on the pant leg, and Bob was your uncle from that point on.
Wow.
That decision, Stevie was not a fan of.
Oh, I can imagine that most of the women in this band, given the contentious nature of the songs and everything, and then it's like you kind of have these back and forths of people kind of telling their side of the story and expressing their emotions, and then they're just like, I'm going to call this album Penis.
Yeah, we're going to call this one Penis. And we're going to go put Penis.
And I can imagine everybody just going like, oh, God, really?
Yeah. Stevie was very against it at the time. I don't know if this is apocryphal, but placed a curse on Scooter.
Oh, no. Scooter.
Poor little Scooter. And also Ken posits a little more seriously in the book that probably the mixture of this action of calling the album Tusk, going with the picture of the dog, alongside what happened at the end of Rumors, which was one of Stevie's songs got cut at kind of the last second. And it was a meaningful song for her. It comes back in their career later, but Ken kind of posits that, okay, this is probably where Stevie really kind of the straw broke the camel's back of like, no, I'm going to really put in the effort to do a solo career.
Right.
And then, as we'll talk about later, but that would be pretty successful for Stevie.
Yeah.
Where here, she's kind of noodling around and kind of stuck in this band where she seemingly is like not able to advocate for her songs in a particularly healthy environment.
Yeah. Well, that sucks.
It does kind of suck. But it's not Stevie's song, so we kind of have to move on.
Sure.
We talked a little bit 2 episodes ago about comedy and about smash cuts.
Yeah.
About the smash cut as a technique, and this is the track with the smash cut with the drum solo in the middle of it from Mick Fleetwood. This is where we get into the part where I am questioning a little bit of Get Tusk to the book because it was written in the 20s. Fuck me. It was written after the pandemic hit, and so 40 some years after the events occurred. So I think that there are some pieces that may not track. For example, the story that I understood before reading Get Tusked was that drum solo that they used from Mick was a drum solo that was intended for a different song, which is why it is at a different speed.
Okay.
But in Get Tusk, Ken says that that was all intentional, and that drum solo was like intentionally recorded at 167 BPM and then spliced in intentionally for this track.
Okay.
And there are a few other little things, little quibbles that just remind me, and I guess is worth reminding the audience that this is a quotation marks primary source.
Sure.
This is an air quotes primary source.
So wait, I'm sorry. Are you saying that you don't quite believe that it was intentional?
I just am not sure which story it is, whether it was a drum solo for another song or whether it was written for this song.
Because I can see, just what occurs to me is that by the point where that comes in, you've got the marching band that you can hear very clearly. And unlike a lot of other types of music, marching band is like very rhythmic in their own right. So it's almost like an inversion of what you would normally have. Instead of a steady drum and a more free-form instrument, you have these very regimented instruments with a big free-form drum solo over the top of it.
Yeah.
And I really wouldn't be surprised. Again, this is my drummer blood coming up of just having Mick Fleetwood going like, we've done this entire damn album and you got me playing on Kleenex boxes and you got me playing in a closet. You're playing your own drums over me.
Yeah.
I want one damn second to just do something.
Kill it. Yeah.
And that wouldn't surprise me in the least if that was the case.
Yeah. So we did talk about it. This has the USC marching band, the University of Southern California marching band. This was a whole ordeal to include this marching band. So they track Tusk, they record Tusk, and I think there's a short holiday break over the winter, and I think that this is when this moment happens, where Mick is on vacation in like northern France. He's like sitting at a cafe, and all of a sudden, a big village band starts parading down the street, and it's this fertility festival, and everyone's involved, and it's this big, beautiful thing. And Mick's idea is, we're going to do that.
Yeah.
No, we're going to do that. So we'll come back to that briefly. But so they contact the USC marching band and they record it at Dodger Stadium. If you see the music video for Tusk, that is documenting this process. It's looking at this process.
It's a variety of scenes from the process.
It's a whole... First off, John McVie is not there. He is on his boat in like the fucking Atlantic Ocean. And so they have a cardboard cutout of John.
Oh, that's what that was. Okay.
And they're just carrying around his cardboard cutout, doing his little smirky grin.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't there for that. Did you know that when you hire a marching band, they probably won't tell you until the day of that the band must march?
Oh, that makes a lot more sense. That makes a lot more sense.
So, yeah, so the band was like, they have to march. That's how they keep time.
Right.
And everyone was like, what the fuck? You should have said something. And so there is Dodger Stadium. And already they're having this trouble. There's 112 musicians on the field.
Okay.
And at one point, they're like, how are they going to hear? If we play it over the speakers, it's going to have too much bleed on the microphones. They're just going to hear the drum. So how do we even do that? Well, just get headphones. Just rent 120 headphones and we'll make it work. Which they were going to do until the band had to march. Okay. And so ultimately they say, okay, I'm the conductor. Give me headphones. And then I think there's some small speaker system that they set up where some people can hear something, but they ultimately have it kind of going to the conductor. Okay. And they're like, I'm the conductor. I will do it fine.
Yeah.
Then they record it, and actually they end up coming back. Do you know a VSO?
No, I don't know what that is.
So it comes up a lot in the talking about this album and a good bit in Rumors, because it was used to kind of save Rumors. But a VSO is a variable speed oscillator.
Okay.
Goodness, I'm going to cut this way short. If you wanted to change the speed of something,
Uh-huh.
you would use a VSO for this.
Okay.
And think of it like when you're watching a movie, and let's say you had a button to kind of offset the sync.
Mhm.
This is kind of like that. Imagine you had a knob and you could kind of change the timing very kind of on the fly.
Okay.
That's kind of what the VSO is.
Hmm.
I recommend going and looking up what it actually is, because in my head, I can see how it works. I know how it works. You're tweening. It's tweening. It's just tweening. But I can't describe it technically, so I'm not going to. But apparently they record the brass band and then have to VSO the whole recording because they're not in time.
Okay.
They're almost in time, but they're not in time. But I think that also leads to a characteristic where the horns maybe are maybe a little perfect. I mean, you talked. You're not on the stand, counselor, but you said earlier that the horns are like very clean, and that the drums and all the other pieces around it are a little sloppier.
Yeah.
And so that VSO process may have ironed that out, I guess.
To just get what they got.
To make the horns like really solid. In fact, another thing on the Tusk re-release, if you go and listen to the B disc of demos and sessions, we talked about how I Know I'm Not Wrong has a lot of takes on that disc. Tusk also has a lot of takes that kind of track like, okay, here is a recording of it as a stage riff. Here are a few different like in the processes. And then one of the last ones there is an instrumental version just with presumably just the marching band. And so it's just you get the horns.
Wait a minute. You told me they took out the hooga haga? But the hooga haga was the best part.
So they record the brass and they get in the song. Very cool. We're not done there.
Okay.
Mick was so taken in France that let's keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
When this is Mick speaking, on our upcoming tour, let's go and reach out to the local high school bands and have them learn the song, and they'll come in during Tusk, and it'll be this huge moment. It'll be this gigantic moment for us, right? When the brass comes in, and suddenly you have the people of the town,
right?
Duh.
Yeah.
So when I talked earlier about the accuracy of the Get Tusked book, this is one of my quibbles. See, Ken says that Fleetwood Mac would go and look at local marching bands and get them to be a part of the concerts. And he asserts that they actually did that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe that's true.
Okay.
Rather, I think there are a few instances where Fleetwood Mac did perform with a band, usually the USC marching band, but not on tour. I have not seen any evidence that actually there was a marching band on tour on any of these dates.
Well, no matter how you slice it up, it sounds like a logistical nightmare. You're either taking an entire, you're taking an entire band with you on tour. You're getting like 4 more buses, or you're trying to get the local high schools in every place that you go to learn this song well enough to play on
to just
stage.
Walk in for one song,
right?
Yeah. So I don't think that happened, but Ken is kind of confident that it does happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying he's wrong, but there are many instances, including the one that we'll talk about at the end of the show, where a band does come on stage and perform with them.
Sure.
And so I'm not saying he's wrong, but I'm saying just little inconsistencies.
It's very possible that it could have happened once or twice,
right?
But probably you would have a lot more documentation if it was a thing that happened through the entire tour.
If it happened ever,
yeah.
Honestly, like the only times that I am really aware of them playing is with the USC band in California. So that's Tusk. It's there's even a longer story that I don't even technically can't entirely wrap my head around, but when they're recording this, the drum beat that they're using is actually a loop. But a loop, again, there was not digital technology at the time to make a loop.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was it was some duct tape sort of solution where they had a magnetic tape that they were able to dub with this like same like measure or 4 measures of a drum recording, and then that tape like winds around the room, and it has to stay taut so it will get read and dubbed on the machines. But then, it's confusing. I kind of don't get it. But Tusk. Before we jump into the alternate, just to kind of prime you, I guess, for the alternate here, this is just a different mix of Tusk.
Okay. So it's not going to be significantly different than what we heard on the album.
I'd like to see if you can. I'd like to see you point out the things that are different, because I think you will. But yeah, in general, it is the same takes. I believe it's pretty much the same audio information.
Yeah.
But it's a slightly different remix.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's jump into that. Alternate Tusk. The alternate Tusk.
Definitely more silliness in the alternate Tusk.
Yeah. For some reason, that's the version that they put on this. Is one that is almost exactly the final cut, but with a little bit more of those vocals in the second half.
Yeah.
And then like the brass, you can hear it a little earlier. You can hear it like a phrase or two earlier. Other than that, it's pretty similar. Maybe there's slight, maybe the compression's different. Maybe there's some smaller mixing things here. But in general, Tusk is Tusk.
Yeah.
But it may also speak to the way that song was made. Like we think about the recording process for it, right? Where they had to record it and then they had to go, record it with the band and then with the marching band and then mix it all together.
Right.
And versus something like, we talked about like Think About Me, which was they get in the studio and they play the fucking song and Bob is Your Uncle because it's just a rock song. And so maybe that's why what we get here is so close to the final product, just because there aren't a lot of like alternate takes.
Right.
This is it.
Well, I mean, yeah, once you add that marching band component in, it's like you're kind of locked in with that. Like,
yeah,
it's actually, I don't know if in those other versions, I would be interested because I can't really imagine this song as without that marching band. Like, it sounds like it would be very simple and kind of just sort of a loop without that. I don't know.
Yeah, it leans a lot on that drum loop.
Yeah.
When you listen to those demos, it's definitely drum loop forward. There's also not the album. I guess both of these versions of Tusk have a lot of like percussion over dubs, right? Like, even if this is a song that is centered around this drum loop, there are other percussive things that go on top of it that make it not just be a loop. There's a lot of like, but I mean, more than just like the vocal bits, there's a lot of bits where they kind of are improvising and changing it up without always making it sound different. Tusk.
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 Well, I'm glad that Mick got to see that band because, again, I think this is one of the more singular, like this one stands out from a lot of the other stuff around it. So
yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're going to wrap up the album here with another softer jam. Let's never forget. Let's listen to a little preview here of the Christine Closer. This is a sweet little jam. More fucking whiplash after Tusk, though.
Yes.
Like Tusk not being the closer and instead it being Never Forget. And I think we maybe alluded to it in side A, but there's a bit of, it feels like continuity between Never Forget and Over and Over.
Okay.
Aesthetically, they're both kind of softer. They both are a little rambly, or maybe they're kind of maybe a little little repetitive. Maybe a little. I don't know. What do you feel about Never Forget?
This is the most challenging song for me on this entire album because this is such a, I don't know. This just seems like it was. This seems like it was. Okay.
Say it.
Okay. I don't want to be mean, but like this seems like
filler.
You went to ChatGPT, you typed in "write me the lyrics to a soft rock song that no one could find offensive ever in the history of all mankind," and then you listen to it musically, and you go, "Is there anything to talk about?
No.
What's going on musically? No." And
listening to it even just now, I was like, "Oh, this doesn't. Nothing changes."
Yep.
Like there's a slight chord change, but
it has it has a chorus, but like this is sometimes a nice pop song, a nice inoffensive pop song is catchy and it works. And there's a lot of Christine songs that I like. I can't find anything to grab onto with this. It's it's so kind of a nothing burger. Come on, baby. Let's,
don't you be cold.
Don't you be cold.
Love is gold.
Like, I could see this in the hands of a blues band who could lyrically or musically oomph it up, even with the same lyrics, even with some of the same stuff.
Yeah.
But the way it is here, it's such a vanilla cake with buttercream frosting that I'm just like, okay. Do I hate it? No, I don't have anything to say about it.
It's like I think I think it's catchy in a way that I think pop songs have to be bad to be catchy. Hold on. I don't think Katy Perry is a good singer. I think her voice is not particularly good for singing.
Yeah.
Her timber's not my preference. And I think that's partly why she's successful, because it's not bad. I just don't like it.
I don't know.
And so I guess what I'm getting at it here is like, I think this is fine. And there are a few like almost like uncanny valley bits, like the way she says stroll and the like two different ways she says it are like strange. Like, we don't say stroll in America to begin with. We definitely don't say stroll. I don't know. But it is catchy.
I don't know.
Never forget. No.
The thing is that I go to Katy Perry. I've been known when doing projects to sometimes listen to the exact same song on repeat, like just for 6 hours at a time, as just like a kind of a something to keep my motor running. And I have done that with specifically Hot and Cold by Katy Perry, which is a much more dynamic song. Like, is it the best song? No, but it's really catchy. I mean, with this, it's like the tempo is just low enough that it's a foot tapper, but not like a getting you going foot tapper. It's a warm bath on a mild afternoon.
I think if this song was on Rumors or the White Fleetwood Mac album, I think it would fit really well, because I think there's a folk genre element to this that across the rest of the album, I think is more succumb to like country influence. And I think between this and like Honey High, I feel like there's enough of a folky element to it that like, that's why I didn't feel any tropical elements to Honey High, because to me, that's like a folk song.
Yeah.
And the folks don't have palm trees. Are you kidding me? No, they would never. In this economy?
Also, I think that I'm also just, I'm judging this song harshly because like Tusk was the perfect end to this album of being the title track and the way that it kind of fades out and the way that it's so different. It's such it's like an exclamation point, Tusk, exclamation point. And then you have this come along and it's just like, what? Like, I don't think I would be as irritated with this if it was pushed back into some of the other places that we were. But it doesn't seem to have the raw emotional element of some of the other songs. It's not lyrically as interesting as even some of the other Christine songs. Again, it's not that I hate it. It's just that it doesn't evoke much to me at all. So
I feel like I'm going to look at the Christine songs on this album over and over. Think About Me.
I really did like Think About Me.
Brown Eyes, Never Make Me Cry, Never Forget. I think this is a song where I think Christine needed to be challenged more.
Yeah.
Like, I think Never Make Me Cry, we heard, a huge shift between its earlier version, which would have been like a very piano forward, like Songbird 2 type song.
Mm-hmm.
And that song got challenged into being this very vocal forward kind of soundscape.
Yeah.
And for like Never Forget or Over and Over, I don't think there was as much challenging of like, can't this, like, I'm not going to imagine I had a better word than this, but can't this be better? Like, can't we do more?
Zhuzh it up.
Can we do more with this?
Gotta
Because
hit it with the Spice Weasel.
you would think that would be what you would find in this band that is defined by the way it collaborates.
Yeah.
And maybe this is part of the excess kind of coming back full circle of this was Christine's song. This is what she wanted. And what she wanted was this very basic sense of a song.
There's also, I mean, I again, this could be me reading into stuff, but you do, I mean, the one thing I like about a lot of the Christine songs is that there's a lot of like emotional tumult between the Stevie Nicks songs and Lindsay's songs. And so the idea of like giving the entire band just a sort of a little bit of a break to let's just have some little basic, let's just have a chicken and potatoes dinner, and then we can go back to freebasing jalapenos tomorrow.
That's the story about Think About Me, right?
Yeah.
Is like the band kind of came together and it was like, oh yeah, we're a fucking rock band.
Right.
We can just do this.
Yep.
Yeah, I see that. It's also another track with kind of a rim click that's been double tracked. Was it Brown Eyes? Yeah, it was Brown Eyes that's also got that click, that rim click. So I'm sure that was fun.
I didn't really get that, but as I said, this song kept just flowing over my brain and I couldn't get it to go inside.
Yeah. I have two more things here I'll never forget. There's a sound that you hear near the end of Never Forget, this like kind of whooshing, warbling sort of sound.
Okay.
It was just as I'm kind of stuck on this because it's in the alternate, but it's such a weird warbling sound that you would have to do a lot of work to make that sound.
Yeah.
But it's also in the demo. It's strange. It's one of those things where I feel like, part of the idea of this album was to make strange sounds, to make new sounds that people may not be used to hearing before.
Yeah.
I mean, there are sounds that you hear in a studio all the time that are not interesting when you're in a studio. But if you're not in a studio all the time, then pressing down on a turntable to make it stop and go,
right,
is something that is novel to people, especially in 1979. And so there's like this warbling effect it sounds like it's with a guitar, but I don't know how else to describe it other than this like wind whooshing sort of sound. But I can't describe it any better than that, and I don't know how you would make that sound.
Yeah,
but
maybe the air conditioning was on.
Maybe
I mean, there's a fan.
This grand studio, and there's like a little window unit.
Yep.
The last thing I'll never forget. I want to say this was probably a slightly earlier song that they recorded.
Okay.
I think the original title of it was "Come On, Baby." And "Come On, Baby," not the other. They saw "Beautiful Child" and said, "No, we got to change it." But the kind of what we talked about is like Tusk probably should have been the closer for this album.
Yeah.
And it was an intentional choice by the group to quote, stifle expectations. The album was about the ups and downs of relationships. So by ending on Never Forget, you were ending on a more positive, slightly optimistic tone.
I had thought of that when I first listened to this, of the idea of doing that. I don't know.
I mean, it's there, but
but then you go back to this question of like, are you trying to challenge me or not? Like, if you're trying to challenge me, then get me out of my comfort space and let's go through this raw emotional journey that you've got going on. And let's end with the lead singer of your band screaming penis into a microphone while the marching band is behind him. Like, you know, let's challenge it.
Because so much of the rest of this album is challenging.
Right.
It is intentionally like being kind of a contrarian, a little bit of like, just fuck you, I'm going to record in my bathroom and we're going to make a replica of my bathroom. Fuck you, I'm going to be on record saying that 1927 bathrooms are better than what we've got now. I mean, fuck you.
I guess it's just a question, because I think that the second time I listened to this song, I thought of it as like, I don't know, this kind of feels like a like a nice gender neutral hug from somebody that you trust. And it was like, oh, that's nice. But then the more I thought about it, the more I started to get mad at it, where I was like, no, like, you dragged me through all of your emotional turmoil and all of these weird songs full of all these strange ideas. Like you're prone in the bathroom screaming, fuck you, screaming at me about this stuff.
Yeah.
Don't give me a cookie and a pat on the back. Like,
but maybe maybe we're still human. Maybe we're not animals.
Like, march off into the sunset with your crazy ass band after you've had this frenetic drum solo and screamed the word Tusk at me inexplicably several times. Like, I think that would be a more fitting end. And it's, again, I want to say that it's not that I dislike this song, and I think that it might have worked in a different place, but I think that there is weight to how do you end the story, you know? It's like, you can end a story in an interesting way, or you can make sure that when you get to the end of the story, it's all wrapped up in a nice bow and everybody feels fine. And those are two different things. And for this one, I think I just would have preferred the whole album was messy. Take your messiest song and your most experimental song and leave me with that to go like, wow, what a way to go out. Because
I mean, and I hear what you're saying too. Like, it's an interesting concept on paper, but there's not a lot of other concepts that it sits next to that are that intentional. It feels like.
Like, mentally I'm sorry, I don't want to keep harping on this, but mentally in my head, it's like the idea, you talked about the concert thing, of going through all of these songs, which are all of these different things, and imagine if you're watching this as an audience, and then Tusk comes on, and they're you know, why don't you tell me that you won't go away? And then suddenly a marching band streams down the hallways of the concert, playing this incredible thing. And then they stream up onto the stage and everybody screams Tusk, and then they all kind of wander off, and then the house lights come up, right? Like, it's just tonally makes more sense to me. But
absolutely, I'm
belaboring a little bit.
Well, we talked previously that it seemed like there was an idea going around through a lot of the recording sessions that this might be two projects,
right?
Or this might be two separate discs or two separate products, and maybe that's a consequence of that. Of we didn't really have anywhere else to put Never Forget, or we had to change tack so late in the project that nothing else can respond, except the track listing. But then, like, either way, you have to take that on the chin.
Yeah, because I don't know. In looking at this last side, it's like, if we just try to find a place for Never Forget on this last side, I don't think that it works well after Beautiful Child, because that's such an impactful song. And I don't know that it would work after Walk a Thin Line, because it would just be kind of too much of the same back to back. So,
and then what do you put on this side if you're replacing Never Forget to make room for it?
I don't know.
You
I mean,
like,
I would have to go back.
It's a longer conversation.
Like, you could probably make a case for taking Never Forget somewhere back in like side one, and then taking another one of Christine's songs like Think About Me that does contrast more with what's on this last side, and swap them out. But then I feel like putting Never Forget on side one takes away that nice little uplifting pop song that you get after the first two kind of experimental things. So anyway,
I mean, it's obviously not an easy problem to solve, you know, tracking out, you know, one album that is kind of three little albums but then making everyone feel good.
Right.
You know, at the end of the day, you actually have to make the band feel good. Otherwise, they're not going to want to do it. Well, let's jump into the alternate Never Forget here.
Okay.
Not much to say about it.
All right.
Come on, baby, could you ever be just a little close to me? Ooh, could we ever forget tonight? Come on, baby, let's take a stroll. You're feeling warm, so don't be cold. Ooh, we will never forget tonight. What a wonderful night to be. Stars must be my friends to shine for me. Come on, baby, now don't you be cold. Just remember that love is gold. Ooh, we never forget tonight. What a wonderful night to be. Stars must be my friends to shine for me. Come on, baby, let's take us to roll. You're feeling warm, so don't be cold. Ooh, could we ever forget tonight? We'll never forget tonight. It'll be alright. 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 We'll never forget
There we go. A little bit of organ.
Yeah.
Got a tambourine instead of the click.
Yep. Better.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought musically a little bit more interesting. It had a little bit more character. I'm still not the biggest fan of the lyrics, but they were even sung in a little bit more, slightly more
looser.
expressive. Yeah, a little bit looser. I would be less.
It's another slight.
Yeah.
Like, it does sound different enough compared to the studio cut.
Yes.
But out of all of them, it's like, I don't even know. They don't even talk about this one in the book. No, they do talk about it just briefly, but like, it's like, yeah, it's
a basic song. It's a very basic song.
Yeah.
Like it kind of goes back to some of the, when I've talked in the past about Lindsay's guitar, where I'm like, if you if you guys are artistes, then like give it to me like full throttle.
Yeah.
And so again, the Christine stuff is kind of hit or miss for me because sometimes it feels real out of place. Sometimes it seems like a nice respite. This one just doesn't seem to have as much to grab onto as a lot of the other ones. So.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I don't even really have whatever. Like, I think I don't like this song. I'm now coming around. I think I'm not liking this song.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it seems like the thing that you're most focused on is like, what is that aquarium noise? Like, that's all you've got.
What is it?
Because it's not like there's anything about the lyrical content that's worth talking. I mean, it's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine. My mom could listen to this song. It would be fine.
Your mom probably did listen to this song.
Mom probably did listen to this song. It was fine.
And I think if you're in the band and this is one of the Christine songs that she's got, well, that's how Christine made her hits, is writing simple songs. So I think, yeah, there probably just isn't, there's just not as much challenging going on of this track.
And I mean, there's another thought that I've had about this, but it might be better saved if we're going to do like kind of end thoughts about the entire album.
Yeah, we will.
Because I did have a thought that I'd like to put in there that's kind of about...
Well, let's jump into that because I don't fucking want to talk about Never Forget anymore.
Okay.
How did you feel now that we're at the end of this experience, Jeff?
It was interesting. I don't think, I think that if I had just come to this album, if I just said, I'm gonna listen to this Tusk album, I don't think I would have liked it. I think that it was one of those things where, I think that there's some music you like right away, and some music you're ambivalent about, and you don't like it, and some music you're ambivalent about, and then as you listen to it more, you start to appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I think that I've appreciated this, especially with your insight and the alternate tracks.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about Fleetwood Mac coming into this.
We have to do a follow-up episode where you just listen to Rumors. Just you reacting to listening to Rumors. Like, where has this guy been?
But, one of the things that I did think about that I think is worth pointing out is that I think that I've been a little bit of a harsher critic on this throughout this process because a lot of these aren't really for me. But yesterday when I was thinking about this side, I was desperately trying to kind of dig into it.
Yeah.
I had to, something that I think a lot of times we forget is that I'm listening to this from 2025 perspective.
Yeah.
I came up
for the first time.
And for the first time. A lot of the music that I like tends to be more complex. It tends to be more produced. It tends to be faster. But all of that is a result of the evolution of music over the years. This could have an entirely different effect listening to it at the time. It may have come off as very experimental when it came out, whereas nowadays, having heard the results of that experiment and then seen people iterate and iterate and iterate, that I guess I just want to give the band credit for they wanted to try something and they did. And that's going out on a limb is a hard thing, especially, I mean, what you just said, if their previous albums were a lot easier to digest and this is more complex and challenging,
yeah.
It may not be my thing, but that's okay. Because it probably, I don't know if this is one of those albums where, you hear about that stuff from time to time where there are less popular albums that then become major influences. People will talk about the first time I listened to Tusk, it just changed my whole thoughts about how music could be created.
Yeah.
So there's a very good possibility that I'm missing out a little bit of that just because of where I'm coming from. But I guess I wanted to temper a little bit of my harsh critiques of this album by saying that I'm coming to this from an entirely different viewpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's part of what I want to do with this is to say hey, it doesn't help the listener much, I guess, if we are able to perfectly replicate what people would have reacted to in this and in the late 70s. But yeah, I have felt kind of that way about this album, similar to how I feel about almost the individual tracks of it doesn't leave a good first impression, and it's tough to make it through. But if you get to the end of it, what you'll find is a thought that has been like executed on well. You know, a lot of these songs like don't have good beginnings. And so I think that's something I'm like constantly having this friction with, of like, if you just did this today, you would have just done this, and you wouldn't have even needed to change much of anything. Just do this. You know, this thing that I really actually don't like when other people do. And so I'm trying not to do it, of like, oh, this movie would have been good if you just cut this scene. If you just did this. And so it is.
I mean, it's the difference between
tough.
taking it as it is, right? And I mean, you know, in my other stuff where I get into video games, a lot of times people will judge a product based on something that product never said that it was going to do, never gave you an impression it was going to do, and yet it's being judged harshly for not doing something. And that is irritating. But by the same token, there's also, I think, an instinct in a lot of people who make art and who have been in production, especially editing, which you and I both done a lot, where you say, oh man, I can just see some places where if you just
do this and move this up, and you
move this down here, you put this chorus over here, it would have appealed to me
so good.
a lot more. And those two things are hard to square.
Absolutely. I hope that that the listeners at least can take away some sense of the thought process at the time. I think that's probably the most like objective goal I can try to have on this.
Sure.
Is like, I hope we can at least create some sort of a line between point A and point B of how these people thought, how they acted, and what their headspace was when making this music, because I don't think that it doesn't represent a modern music production sensibility. This is not the way you make an album now, but it also wasn't really the way you made an album then. So I just want to try to understand why. I'm getting away from being objective, but why did you do this?
Well, that's okay too, because this is, I mean, music is about taste, right? Everybody has a different taste. There's no such thing as like an objectively perfect song.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you could probably play this entire album at 1.5x for me, and I would have maybe enjoyed it more.
Oh yeah.
Just because I like
that would have made
RPMs.
you like the Ledge just a little bit fast. Yeah. I just think it's so fascinating, and with all of the stories, I mean, I think it's kind of also self-evident, like why this band attracts attention, just because these stories are not primal, but they do feel primary. Like Rumors is about, you know, people who broke up, and it's about your headspace, and if you could say something to the person who broke up with you.
Yeah.
And that's so enticing, you know? I mean, I don't think it's a mistake that like the band, even that the image of the band, and even the band like will accept the image that they are like the musical soap opera. But you know what? They are. And they made some good songs, and end of thought process, I guess. And I would like to make content of it.
No, I definitely, that is something that's unique about this, that in thinking about it while you were just talking, it was like, I don't necessarily think that I, like, listening to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, I don't feel like I know anything about what was going on in, you know, John Lennon's personal life based on those tracks. Whereas this is like a reality TV show. We're throwing drinks in people's faces. We're going back and forth. We've got he said, we got she said. And there is an attraction there. I think that it would be interesting to get the impression of somebody who had never listened to this before, who knows about the personal lives of the band, but then hasn't listened to this album.
Yeah.
And then what is their impression from just listening to this with a deeper understanding of those relationships. So,
I mean, and I think that's another place where like this band is really poised to look. Fleetwood Mac charted a few years ago because of like a TikTok trend that went viral. Like, there's still some magic in that old top hat.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
Even if Lindsay's not even in the band anymore, like there's something about it that attracts attention. And I think it's very noble that the music is also good.
Yep.
You know, in high school, I listened to a lot of Japanese pop music and a lot of these like girl groups, like idol groups.
Yeah.
And I look back at that time now, and maybe I'm finding some shades here that most people won't, but the groups, the big group that I liked, or the big like umbrella group around it, part of why I liked them was because the guy who made their music was a rock star. He like legitimately wrote tons of songs. He wrote hundreds of songs for these bands. And whatever you felt about the singers or the outfits or the end of the day, there was also still good music under there.
Sure.
You know, this is the guy who does the music for Rhythm Heaven, by the way.
Okay.
Like, it's that there's something there. And so I feel strangely, just to go from like the fucking purity of Japanese idols to fucking 79 Fleetwood Mac, I feel a similar sense of like the music is here and it's whole.
Yeah.
Even if the music itself is experimental, this is a 5-piece band that gave it their whole. When I was looking up like what to name this album, I almost called this a noble failure because there's like a whole thing about like what a noble failure is, and I think potentially Tusk falls under that of like this band trying to make the most of their opportunity, fully committing to everything that they do, and even if the results are relatively only 4 million copies. Oh, only 4 million.
Only 4 million copies. Jeez, why even bother at that point?
Any other thoughts on Tusk as a whole piece of text before we go into some other stuff?
No, I think that kind of wraps it up. An interesting, I think an interesting mess is maybe how I would say. There's a lot of ups and downs, and some of it is great, and some of it bored me to tears. But
that's music.
Yeah, that's how it is.
Yeah.
So
after Tusk comes out in 1979. The band ends up going on the Tusk tour.
Okay.
The video, that making of, comes out even later. There were like technical issues or something, so it doesn't come out around the same time. And that tour, I suppose, really maybe finalizes some of the frustrations in the band, some of the resentment or anger. Members of the band have talked after the fact later that, you know, recording the albums is really difficult, and going on tour is like 5 times as difficult. And I absolutely see why. You're constantly in a new place. You're in the band that has as much drugs and drink as they want at all times. Not to mention, there's probably a good amount of fucking going on in a band with people who fucking hate each other.
Right.
So like, that's also really stressful.
Also, just to interject, I can't imagine what it's like to then have to get up night after night and sing some of these emotionally raw songs. And there's got to be I don't know, but there's got to be some kind of emotional calculus about like, do I keep poking at this wound to get a good rendition of this emotional song, or do I let it become this degraded version because I've squeezed all the emotion out of it and we're just kind of going through the motions? Like, how do you sing what makes you think you're the one like 3 times a week with the emotion of what's going on this album?
Yeah.
And not like, and then like those wounds that begat these songs that never heal because you just keep opening them up night after night for a big group of people screaming and cheering, and then go back and do a bunch of drugs and have weird sex or whatever. Like,
I mean, because you go through all of this and the reward is you continue to have your lavish lifestyle of excess.
Yep.
People tell you that you're still geniuses even when you make like the funky weird art album.
Yep.
It's so I that kind of happens. A lot of the recording during the Tusk tour becomes Fleetwood Mac Live, which we've heard pieces of. Tusk and Sarah are singles and they are moderately successful. I think there's a small fun fact that in the UK, Tusk at the time, maybe still, but at the time, because it charted in the UK, it was like the song with the most number of musicians in it to chart.
Okay.
Because there's 120 some people.
Sure.
After Tusk, the band doesn't put out another album until 1982's Barrage. But in that meantime, Stevie Nicks goes and has her solo career. Belladonna comes out and is a pretty big hit. Lindsay releases an album called Law and Order. And those are more tepidly received.
Yeah.
Lindsay's got the song called Trouble, which is kind of a hit, but it's also this very like kind of watery song, so whatever. The band would get together to do Mirage. They got back together to do like a pop album. We're going to get Richard Dashit back from Rumors. We're going to make a pop album. And we're going to do it in France for some reason.
We're going to recapture the magic of our youth. It's going to be great. It's going to be just exactly like it was.
And Mirage is a fine album.
Yeah.
It's a fine album. Then eventually, it would be a few more years and the band would be working on Tango in the Night. After Tango is done, Lindsay ends up leaving the band right before they go on tour. Like 2 weeks before they go on, like the band have gotten together to sign the contracts to go on tour, and he says, "I'm not going to go on tour. I'm leaving the band," which leads to like a fucking brawl. Like Stevie attacks him and chases him outside. It's a fucking whole thing. And so he doesn't go on that tour. They end up getting these other 2 guitarists to replace him. The band goes on tour. The band tries to cover without him. Then 1994 or 93, Bill Clinton is on the campaign trail and is using Fleetwood Mac's Don't Stop as his campaign song, which leads to a small reunion in 94 of the band performing Don't Stop. And then their big reunion would be in 1997 for The Dance, where Lindsay would come back. They produced this live video and album. You may have seen it, honestly, for some of the ubiquity of it at the time. And then they end up going on tour again, kind of in this new reunited Mac.
Okay.
Christine leaves a little bit after that. And then Say You Will comes out in 2003. And then that's kind of the Fleetwood Mac story. There's that was even longer than I expected that to go. But this is a band with a lot of story, and it is a musical soap opera, but I just wish there were better words to describe it like that, because it feels unfortunately cheap, if you call it that.
I guess maybe something to just, as we talk about this chaotic period, I don't really, of Fleetwood Mac, Stevie Nicks is really the only person I was familiar with before we started this.
Sure.
Was Lindsey Buckingham considered talented? Like a talented? Because I mean, like, he seems experimental, but he doesn't seem as experimental as some of the other acts that I've been able to think of.
Yeah.
And then when he does the kind of basic stuff, he seems fine at it, but at no point does his guitar seem as good as some of the big notable guitarists that are out there. His vocals are fine, but they're not like, something that a world-class musician that everybody knows. Like, I be honest with you, there's a lot of these songs where it was like Christine and Lindsay. I had a hard time telling between the two of them. So
I would say that Lindsay's like status right now is like as an underappreciated guitarist.
Okay.
That said, like, I think if you look at this whole resume of his time in Fleetwood Mac, that there's probably enough points where you go like, that does seem questionable. That maybe on technical reasons you would like not have him be, some sort of like Mount Rushmore type figure. Like, I think Tusk probably does a lot of damage to the idea that he's a great guitar player.
Well, and then also it seems like, I mean, just from the chronology that you laid out, that like, I don't know if I'm just making stuff up, but what it sounds like is that he thought he was a genius himself, and you guys are just holding me back, and then you go out and don't actually manage to put anything out that manages to wow people. That his strength was more as a part of this band and not necessarily as a solo entity in the way that like Stevie Nicks.
I could see that. I mean, it's definitely his assertion here by the time they're making Tusk that what he can bring to the band is not just guitar playing, but is in studio skills. I don't just play the guitar. I help everyone finish their songs. I help make sure the albums sound good.
Now build my bathroom.
Build my bathroom. And I don't think that that's even inherently wrong. I don't think that there's anything that says that that's not true. I think it's very possible that Lindsay had a very big hand in the production of Rumors and parlayed that into a stronger hand in Tusk. But I think he also has to be the one to take all of the response on the chin.
Right. If you're going to be if you're going to be in charge, then when the blame comes down, it's going to come to you.
So much so that like on Tusk, on the actual printing of Tusk, it's on the vinyls, and I think you probably have it on the CD if I'm thinking about it. But so there, Tusk by Fleetwood Mac. And every copy of Tusk I've seen, including the alternate Tusk, has another line that says, "Special thanks from the band to Lindsey Buckingham."
My goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm starting to empathize with Stevie Nicks chasing him out in the parking lot. The ego on this guy, which, I mean, I don't know. The problem with this is that, like, it would be interesting to get into the what if machine and be like, what would Tusk sound like without Lindsay, right?
Oh, there are what ifs, maybe not the Tusk one, though. This one is a wild hair. I'll leave to the audience.
Yeah.
At some point in Get Tusked, I only caught this today, but the studio, or I don't know if the record label or someone went back in and made a like 5.1 surround sound mix of Tusk, and it sounded like there was a good amount of work from the engineering team to kind of maybe re-smooth Tusk again in those 5.1 mixes.
Okay,
but I don't know enough about those to say more. Just fascinating. Just I mean, because I also think that like I've worked in plenty of collaborative and creative scenarios, and I think I feel a certain amount of kinship to the scenarios and the stories of Tusk, of dealing with personalities, dealing with outside voices, dealing with technology and outside influences, and even you know, at the time, they had the run of the land because they had all this huge success.
Yeah.
And even then, all that huge success was not an indicator that if you do it your way, it will be even more of the same.
Sure.
It's complicated. Like this album, there's not necessarily one moral. It's just a lot of vignettes of what it's like to be dealing with a relationship.
It's like life.
It's like life. Before we head out, I want to do one last quick thing. We're going to send people out with a performance of Tusk from 1997 from The Dance.
Okay.
This is that big reunion where Lindsay came back and they're touring again.
All right.
So we are going to listen to a little bit of the live Tusk.
Okay.
Now imagine that in every city across America.
It's very impressive. And was that Lindsay?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That was 1997, about 18 years after Tusk.
Okay. I like that Lindsay more than what I heard on this album. Like,
yeah.
Even though I did miss a little bit of the kind of everybody singing together, but I did appreciate the accordion.
Yeah.
And then I felt bad for Stevie because she didn't really have anything to do.
Shimmy shake, and then her tambourine is not being picked up at all.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's a clip from The Dance, which they got a Grammy for that.
Oh, okay.
So like, hey, you know what? Maybe there's some magic in that hat.
Sure.
All right. Well, that's going to do it here for Side D, and I think that'll do it here for Two Tusks.
Cool.
Unless we find some reason to come back again. But thank you, Jeff, for joining me on this journey.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you to the listeners for joining us, and we are going to send you out with the dance version of Tusk. Thank you. Have a good one.
Why don't you